Hey guys, Vern Danke, welcome back. Today I am at my favorite Chiang Mai park again, Buac Hard Park. And today I wanted to discuss some things that I noticed on my growing curve going through life as an expat. Let's check it out.
Hey, Vern.
Here's the thing. Whenever you're traveling, whenever you're going through life, you should be growing. You should be changing. You should be experiencing things that help to bring you to a higher level in life. And when you learn those things, the best thing to do is to share them, to help other people so they don't have to learn the way you had to learn, or maybe to help their journey out a little bit better. So that's kind of my thoughts for today. Recently, I had a friend pass away, and he was an expat, and he lived overseas for 5 to 7 years. And one thing I noticed with his passing is I am starting to see a theme with other expats that I've encountered over my years of traveling. And that theme is, a lot of times there isn't provision for these people for their passing. There isn't anything they have set up. So what happens is their loved ones end up absorbing their costs or paying their bills because they didn't have good enough provisions set up for after they were gone. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. That hurts the people that are already struggling to get ahead when all of a sudden they've got your issues to deal with now. So what can we do about that? Let's talk about that today. So the reality is we're all headed toward the exit. We're all going to leave sometime. And what do we have set aside for the time that we do leave? What do we have? Do we have a minimum amount of money set aside for our burial, for our funeral service? Now, I had heard in the Philippines just recently when I was looking at prices, and the cheapest I heard was $300. Now, if you go ahead and set $300 aside and say, well, Vern said that you could get a funeral. Okay, guys, this is the minimum. So starting at $300 up, at least have maybe $750 to $1,000 set aside for when you pass. The people have some money to take care of your remains. Can be more, but don't err any less than maybe $500 to $700. Okay, so have that as a standard point. And then there has to be a time where people have to literally sit down and think, what is the value of my life on the earth? Is it worth a health insurance policy? Is it worth $10 set aside in the bank? What is my end of life costs worth? And where is the point where if we don't have the money, just let me go home to pass on, or this is all we're spending? There has to be that talk. You have to have that in your plan. You can't just seat of the pants ride, do whatever you want, because what happens is all the other people are going to absorb your expenses because you didn't do anything to plan. You didn't talk to the people ahead of time. And that to me is careless. That doesn't make any sense. Let's look at a scenario. Okay, so you've got some maybe minor health issues, you're getting a little bit older, or maybe something happens, and then you pass away. Now, your family, they have to decide your funeral, they have to have money for your funeral, and maybe you were in the hospital for a while, now they have to pay for your hospital expenses. And where's that money going to come from? Now, a lot of guys say, oh, I don't trust this person or that person, and so they don't give that person access to any money. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because there needs to be some trust somewhere to give somebody access to something of yours for those end time moments. Maybe you have a trust fund account. Maybe you have a little money set aside for this last thing, that maybe you trust this person, they have a trust number to call or whatever, but you got to have something so the other people don't have to absorb your issues, right? Or my issues. I mean, it's universal. Everybody is going to have this experience in the end, and nobody talks about it and nobody is planning for it. That's why this video come up, because I had a friend pass away. He didn't have anything set up for the people afterwards. He did bring some keys with him to a safety deposit box in the US, but his wife can't go over there. She doesn't have the money to travel. How's she going to get into that box? You know, there might not be even anything in that box because they've never had this conversation. So we're setting up people to ultimately fail because we didn't pre-plan anything for our family, for our friends, for ourselves. So there was one fellow that was fairly well known in our expat community. And everything I'm going to tell you is a little bit hearsay to some degree, but it still paints a picture of things to think about and to consider. Now, this person was kind of not really wanting to run by the system. So from best I could tell, they let their visa expire for 10 years. And then they ended up meeting somebody that had some kids, and they ended up having a few kids. Now, this person was a veteran, and so they were entitled to some benefits, as were their kids. Well, they never really could get married in Asia because they were under the radar. And they couldn't go back to marry because they were afraid they would be denied entry back in. So their kids, as far as I know, did not even get any benefits. Maybe there's a way that they can get benefits, but what I'm trying to get at is every choice that we have when we're with other people is going to impact those other people. And if we don't do anything, then those people are going to suffer. And there really is no sense for that, because it just takes a little bit of planning to make it so it'll work out for everybody. And that's what this is about today. I know there's a lot of expats in the expat community that have a lot of stories of people's families having to absorb their costs, people basically needing money while their spouse was maybe unconscious, maybe in an accident, maybe in some kind of a hospital scenario where they had no way to talk to that person, and they had no way to access money for that person. And that's scary. I wouldn't want you to be in that scenario. I wouldn't want my family to be in that scenario. So make a plan, have a setup, talk to your family. If I get sick, this is the money that we can spend on this. This is the money for the health insurance. This is the money for the fund to get through this time in the end. You know, put it all into place. So my friend who passed, he had a $10,000 hospital bill that his family has to absorb now. Now in a third world country, $10,000 is equivalent to probably $100,000 to them. And if they're only making $3 to $5 US a day, how long is that going to take to pay off? And that's not right. That's just not right, you guys. And it just would take a little bit of planning, a little bit of common sense to deal with these issues. And as an expat community, we need to come together. We need to work through this. We need to dialogue. I think being irresponsible, there just isn't a good reason for that. So that's it for today, you guys. I had this in my head. I was thinking about it. And I talked to a few people in Asia, what they thought if I should speak up. And they said, yeah, you should say something. And so it shouldn't have to continue if we consider our end goal, our end game, whatever this is. We're all headed for the exit. And if we make plans to that end time, then it won't be as hard for the people that have to deal with our stuff in the end. And if you guys have some ideas of how to make it better, I'd love to hear it. I'd love us to dialogue through this. I'd love to hear what other people are putting in play, and maybe some good stories that they've heard, that when somebody passed, there was a good scenario, a good scene, something happened where people benefited in the end, and that would make a brighter future for everybody, you guys. So that's it. Thanks for listening to my chat, and hopefully the next one is not as deep.